So, the topic that I wanted to share with you guys tonight is I want to talk about how my deficits from childhood become my non negotiables in adulthood. Let me say that again. My deficits from childhood become my non negotiables in adulthood. But the caveat is, I don't walk them out really well. I'm hypervigilant about them, but they're still not met. And it keeps me in my cycle. It keeps me stuck relationally. Um, if you're new to the HC or you're new to CFR tonight, as humans, we're relational, not just with people, with all domains of our world. I have a relationship with food. I have a relationship with my fur babies. Obviously, they're even in our guidelines. I have a relationship with my recovery. I have a relationship with pathology, unfortunately, which is my codependency. We have relationship with everything that shows up in our world. Relationship with work. Really anything you can think of, exercise, food, all of our numbers and medicators, it's a relationship. And when we explore those relationships, we start to get more insight as to how our needs are met. So when you think about how I show up in relationship, that's imprinted from childhood. And frequently I will use the analogy, the metaphor, I don't ever know which one it is, of I'm like a blueprint of a house. And all I have is what was given to me from childhood, which is my blueprint. And I can add to that blueprint anytime I want to. And the challenge is all I have is what was given to me. So if adding to my blueprint, knowing that I can grow, knowing that I can be anything I want to be, knowing that I have worth and value, if that's not given to me, it doesn't matter how big of a house I want in my adult life. I don't know how to give it to me. So I want to use some examples. And just so I don't get lost tonight, I'm a little tired, but so I don't get lost, I'm going to speak in the I and use some of my own story to describe this. My deficits from childhood is what I look for in relationships. I want someone to fix it. I want someone to make it better. I want someone to fill the void. A deficit I have is in my childhood, the person that was supposed to love and protect me also happened to be the person that hurt me. And so thematically, the way that shows up is I have a pattern of relationships where I am hurt, I am neglected, I am abused, anywhere on that continuum. Why? Because the relationship that was supposed to love and protect me is also the relationship that hurt me. So that part of the blueprint wasn't drawn out very well. There's not a slab under it. So it doesn't matter how beautiful the house is, it's going to fall in, right? So when I don't know how to keep me safe, I'm going to continue to look outside of me to keep me safe. What does that mean? That means I'm going to expect my best friend to keep me safe and never hurt my feelings. That means I'm going to expect my husband or my wife to keep me safe and never hurt me. The non-negotiables I was referencing, my deficits from childhood become my non-negotiables in adulthood. That non-negotiable is not realistic. It's not realistic to never be hurt in a relationship. And as a trauma survivor, if that's a deficit that was never filled, that's the little part of me that's still waiting on someone to do it. So if that's my inner child's expectation, there's not going to be a lot of emotional intelligence around it. It's not going to make a lot of sense. There's not going to be a lot of logic. Why? Because it's my emotional being, not my logical being. Logically, I know I have to keep myself safe. And I'm a pretty intelligent person, but somehow I keep getting in relationships that are emotionally unavailable. Or I keep getting in relationships where no one does for me the way that I do for them. Or I keep getting in relationships where I give and give and give, waiting for them to show up, and they never give back. It's one-way street. Each of those examples is me waiting on the external world to fill a deficit that I never got. The challenge or the problem with that is it can't come from the outside world. That is a seed that is planted from within, and I grow it. So if it's not part of my imprinting, if I wasn't raised with value, inherent worth, inherent love, children's rights, if you don't know what those are, I'll mention them in a minute. If I wasn't given that and offered that, I don't know that I have it, or I don't even know what it means to have it. So when I'm waiting on those deficits, maybe you guys remember in other groups, we've talked about, as humans, we're wired to survive. And as humans, we also can't live without connection. Unfortunately, there's a lot of really shitty research from the 60s and 70s. Don't Google that. It's traumatizing. That will show that babies given the option of food and babies given the option of connection will go for connection and not eat. We're wired to survive. So children look like acting out, stealing food, being silly in class, talking too much. Their behaviors are inappropriate, but the intention is to fulfill needs, because there's no such thing as a bad child. And if those needs aren't filled as an adult, I'm still going to act out. And I'm going to do that with my numbers and my medicators, whether that's food, whether that's exercise, whether that's relationship and my codependency, whether that's work. I'm going to look out here to fill something that is voided in here. And the problem and the challenge with that is it'll never fill. And I'll keep upping my numbing and medicating more and more and more because it doesn't work. If I can, with support, explore those deficits, I then can do something about it. It's called reparenting. And as long as I'm waiting on the outside world to treat me better, to keep me safe, to love me better, it's never going to happen, because that's not the purpose and the role of my external world. It absolutely is my responsibility to heal me, even though I didn't cause it. And I sure as hell can't really cure it, but I can recover from it. So just because I have a childhood of a shit ton of deficits, number one, doesn't mean I live in blame and fault and I have to beat up my parents for that. My parents did the absolute best for me, and they can't give me something they don't have. So being able to look at who I am today and who I'm trying to become isn't going to be a one-woman show anymore. Because my one-woman show as a workaholic, it does a really great job at keeping me out of my body, but it doesn't serve me well relationally at all. And it's really easy for me to focus out here in my relationship or my marriage with my husband, or my relationship with my boys, or my relationship with my family of origin. Because the reality is, if I keep waiting on those relationships to keep me safe, I'm going to be a 43-year-old woman still waiting on my mom to be a mom. And I don't have to do that. I don't have to wait on that because I make up if that was going to happen, it would have already happened by now. She would have already given it to me. She just doesn't even have it. So I wanted to highlight for this for you guys, so you could think about what of your deficits from childhood are your non-negotiables right now, and are they getting met, or are you numbing and medicating? Are you continuing to externalize a need that can only come from within? Are you stuck in that vicious cycle? Because you don't have to do that alone. That's not a requirement. That's not even a rule anywhere. It's not written anywhere that has to happen alone. So I hope this was helpful for you guys. I want to turn it over to you to hear about any strength, experience, hope, anything that came up for you. Feel free to share.